this is another one of those times when I haven't really thought a lot about what I'm going to say before I actually start filming me talking. But it's interesting. I mean, I'm not particularly familiar with anything other than white culture. You know, white culture is the dominant culture in the United States. It always has been. Really, I mean, in terms of since the United States was the United States. So I don't really know that much how people who are not white or specifically of like a darker skin color tend to talk about things metaphorically, right? In terms of light or dark, bright or dark, that kind of thing. Dark being like a sad, something that seems like sad or bad or hard or that kind of thing, and sort of the light always being light things, white things, being like symbolic of things that are good or more pure, that kind of thing. But it's very pervasive. It's extremely pervasive in language, in literature, everywhere, right? So that's interesting because I don't have anything to compare it to in terms of how other cultures talk about things, right? I mean, it's from my perspective, honestly, everything that is not white culture or that is not a form of non-white culture that is sanctioned by white culture, right? Oh, it's okay to be black this way in a public way. It's okay to be Hispanic this way in a public way, because that's really all you see, and I think it's really too bad. You know, and this I have talked about before, although I haven't talked about it in a while. You know, the people of color, for the most part, who are allowed to gain visibility, who want visibility and are allowed to gain it, tend to be people who are allowed to gain it by the dominant white culture, right? In entertainment, that's particularly true, right? You have to fit the mold. You have to, you know, in one way or another. I mean, what are kind of the black stereotypes? I saw something, it's like somebody's speech from a few years ago. I think it was sometime in 2011. This the black lady was talking about. She was talking about black culture, and she was talking about mammy, like the mammy figure, and I had never really thought about it that much. She was talking. It was a very interesting speech that she gave, and I thought it was really kind of important speech, relevant, that kind of thing. And it seemed to me that she was aware of the stuff that had been happening around me and was speaking to that a little bit. And I think it's been a very painful time for black people in the United States, the ones who are aware of what's going on, right? Because President Obama has proven himself to be no better than most of the white male politicians who are around, right? No better. Maybe no worse, but no better, right? In terms of these other issues, women's rights, children's rights, that kind of thing, right? so there you go. You know, I mean, there you go. And that's, I think, has had to have been painful for a lot of people of color who were, you know, it would be nice. It would be nice if the first black president, well, he's half white and half black, right? He doesn't really look particularly white, right? It would have been nice if he had been someone whose standards, morals, ethics were a lot better than the average white male politician, but they're not, and that's to be expected, right? It says something about the nature of politics in the United States, you know. There you go. he's no better than your average white male politician, right? Maybe no worse, but no better. So there's that. But anyway, yeah, stereotypes, I think, are kind of still continue to be kind of the only things that are available in terms of, you know, what black people are able to do in public life, which is really, really a shame. Really too bad. You know, I mean, when it is that they just get to be human beings on screen, you know, or in other things that they do, I'm not really sure when that's going to happen. You know, I mean, I think, which my so-called life, right? She says this thing. Angela says this thing. I think it was even in the first episode. She says it about high school. She says, if was it yearbook? She said it was something about yearbook or school newspaper or something. She said, you know, if you wrote a book about what really happened, it would be a really upsetting book. And I think that probably has is the reason why things still tend to be defined in terms of stereotypes for people who are not white in the United States, right? I mean, it's like, what are you really going to show in a truly realistic portrayal of black life or just non-white life in the United States? What are you going to show? You know, I mean, to really have it be truly realistic, right? And not just some kind of fantasy in which you have just, you know, I mean, this like fantasy in which you have people who have these amazing houses and, you know, are still living all sorts of stereotypes, but it's just still kind of a fantasy, just like there are a lot of white fantasies for how white people live, right? But it tends to be, as far as I can tell, the fantasy of just rich black people, where you get all of these rich black people who are making all this money when the United States is still, you know, this idea of it, when the United States is still so racist in so many ways, I don't know, and then they're kind of living their lives in this black way, and everything is kind of stereotypically black way, right? Or fantasy, or in fantasy land in terms of the entertainment industry, what's going to allow, right? But I mean, what is it when you get down to like what the real interactions are, right? This is the more subtle things, the more pervasive things, the assumptions that still kind of govern everything that everybody does, the ways in which people consciously or unconsciously discriminate. Those things are painful and difficult and subversive in terms of what the actual thing still is, right? So you're not, when you're going to see all that, I honestly don't know. I just don't know, you know? I have no idea. But yeah, so I started talking about this in terms of like the way that people talk about things, these things that are entrenched in language and have been for such a long time. Somebody said something to me years ago. Actually, it was said to a number of people at once. She actually had said that her culture was one in which things that are dark and things that are light are considered to be kind of naturally part of each other, right? Nighttime, a time of rest, a time of things being quieter, a time of peace, you know, peacefulness, that kind of thing. So it's basically an entirely opposite connotation. And I can certainly understand that, you know, but it doesn't tend to really, that way of thinking doesn't really tend to have a presence in white life, which it should.